diversify a little bit. You want to balance things out. It may be that just, it may be that there's, trying to do a good state, it may be that there's a Richmond event and a Arlington County event. It may be that there's a Orlando event and a Miami event. It may be like even if it's just one additional event, one, it will give you more opportunities to call people and cultivate and solicit funds. It's a great second organizing principle for a finance staff where, often right before JJ things are absurdly crazy, and then after JJ it's like, you're chasing some pledges, but the finance director will often come to meetings and be like, well, we just had JJ, and so we're just working on that still. And it's like, well, let's give you some more stuff to work on. There are plenty of upsides to events. Obviously, politically and communications-wise, it's a great way to present a great public face. Helpful for your fundraising call time. People intuitively understand, will you host at this amount? That's like a nice excuse to make an ask. And you can engage new people. Downsides are scheduling, particularly when major campaigns expect a state party to take a backseat all through the campaign cycle. Well, we're doing an event there. You can't do an event there too. That's it's messed up. We expect you to slow your fundraising down so we can ramp our fundraising up. Scheduling like that, the logistics can be troublesome. One night of bad weather, which I keep bringing up and has burned me many times. Your budget can be compromised. It takes an enormous amount of staff time and obviously cost. You're exposed. And that's why, to the extent that you could find free venues, the 100 people in a house, and the most instructive event I saw when I was working at the DNC was we had this great event in Atlanta, fundraiser for the DNC with the vice president of all people, and it was like 80 people in a house. I was like, I'm used to the only other event I'd been with him at that point in my job was the West Virginia JJ dinner, which was like 1,600 people. And that's kind of what I thought he was used for. But even at that level, Vice President of the United States, sometimes the most effective format for a fundraising event is private home, no overhead, get as many people into the house as you can, call it a day. If it's 10 grand, great. If it's 80 grand, great. But it's free and clear and it's just easier sometimes. So this is my last point. That you guys have been very patient. Is everything going all right so far? Should check in with you? Okay. It's a dangerous question to ask. It's like looking at Jackson, like he may shake his head.
I've got a whole list of things, Dave. I'm just waiting for it.
So, donor evolution, I introduced this concept at the beginning of the presentation. This is like, wow, somebody just contributed. So what happens now? So this is this phenomenon. People are giving to you. They are contributing to you. Maybe not at the frequency or level you'd like, but you have donors. The question is, do you have an approach that gets your donors beyond that one gift, one time, and encourages them to do more? Utilizing 2016 as possible, are you moving beyond the campaign mentality into a nonprofit mentality? And this is, I thought this would be a good example. I'd dig these two former donors up. But basically, one is Sandy, and the other is Gloria. This is sort of the story of their donor evolution. One, a story in success, and one, a story in missed opportunities. So we sent out a membership mailer in January. Gloria gave $100 right off the bat through the mail. Awesome. Sandy gave $50. Keep in mind, this is back in the days where we didn't thank people until the next quarter, because we were just so busy back then. So they don't hear from us again, right? No thank you letter goes out, nothing. They just wrote a check off a piece of paper that landed at their house. Pretty good indicator that they're with you, by the way. Then, in March, we had a sort of end of the quarter campaigns getting kicked off. We really need your help sort of letter. And we got additional gifts from both. Gloria has dropped to a $50 gift, no idea why. Sandy has contributed $25, right? They both gave, again, huge positive flag. These are two people, without having been thanked, who got two totally passive, probably lame with a typo, letters that said, one said, hey, join the Democratic Party, which is like a weird, I mean, they're already Democrats, but we're asking them for their membership dues. And the second is, hey, help us with this campaign, and they gave to both. Now, in declining amounts, but they gave to both. My argument to you is that at this point, and I've got some suggestions, but at this point, people like that should jump off the page. Right? There's a reason they're giving. They believe in Democrats, the president, what we're doing. They believe in our party. But they've basically been mistreated for 3 months. They haven't been thanked. They're getting these letters. Here's where things get interesting. Sandy has one thing that Gloria does not. She happens to live in the city of Richmond. And in June, there was a JJ dinner in the city of Richmond. And on a lark, we thought it would be interesting, because the JJ tickets were $150 a piece, entry-level ticket for dinner. We thought it would be interesting to spend the money to pare down into our donor universe a little bit and mail physical invitations just to kind of the Richmond metro area for people that were a little below what you'd otherwise consider being wise, like 100, 150 in the past. 150 makes sense. We went down to 75, and that was Sandy. Sandy was a $75 in aggregate contributor to the party. So we sent her an invite, hey, come to JJ. She bought a JJ ticket. So now this person who's only ever given $75 to the party is on the board for $150 in one check and $225 in aggregate. So we're like, she comes to the JJ. JJ's awesome, have a great time, so everything's going great. Now, so she's a $225 aggregate giver, $150 in one check. My chairman goes full-time in July. He decides to start having, wherever he goes, a series of these grassroots donor luncheons. And the goal is at every luncheon to raise $2,500 over lunch. So he gets on the phone and calls 30 $250 potential donors. Maybe 5 to 10 of them say yes, right? And he sits down, has lunch with them, goes on his merry way. But it's his little project. We just provide him with the names. Well, since Sandy is a $225 in aggregate and a $150 at one time, we threw her in because the lunch was in Richmond. She gave. She gave again. This time to sit down and have an in-person lunch with our chair. This is a pretty significant moment in that, Chair's a very likable dude, and this is like 6 or 7 people around the table, and the leader of the state party, and so pretty great access and involvement for somebody who started in January writing a $50 check to the party. This is somebody who, until August, was essentially, we were ignoring, but we happened to strike a little bit of gold. So now, Sandy's kind of awesome to us at this point. Like, she's giving regularly, giving an ever-increasing amount. In order to RSVP for the lunch, she had to go online and contribute, which was the other positive thing. We had never had Sandy's email up until this point. So now we have Sandy's email address. In addition to her $250 gift, in September we sent out this urgent email about the campaign, hey, help support us. Another $100 comes in. And finally, we shoot the moon, but thinking that she's pretty happy with us. We've since thanked her several times. The chairman wrote her a handwritten note in here saying, hey, thanks for having lunch with me. And along with the 6 other people we randomly had lunch with. And at the end of the year, we wanted to have a debrief and a strategy discussion in December to sort of dissect the election and brag about how awesome things were for the state party in 2012. And we asked her to be one of the co-hosts for the event. $500. And she said yes. So this is what when I use the phrase donor revolution, this is what I'm talking about. On the one hand, Gloria totally falls off the face of the earth. Had she received similar treatment early on and been given other opportunities in other formats and other sort of styles to give or invest in the party, she might be right up there with Sandy. But instead, Gloria fades off the page. Never hear from her again. She's probably given money to Tim Kaine or Barack Obama, or she's moved on, right? She didn't get thanked early on, she's not happy, whatever, stupid ass Democrat, she moves on. Sandy starts at $50 and ends the year at $1,075?
It's 1,075.
Aha! Liberal arts. So, so basically, my point being in one graph that I am very sympathetic to the argument that a finance director managing a call program, events, whatever, maybe doing their own meetings, has a very full 16-hour day, right? Like that it is hard to ask them to spend their midnights and 1 a.m.s pouring through these numbers. But I would submit to you that this is early on especially, this is a pretty decent project for a data manager. And this is what I mean about like involving other members of your staff in a project, or the work of a competent van-trained volunteer or a member of a caucus staff or some other like a campaign or state party professional, political professional that you trust to help you do one simple thing, which is early on in a year, you can really start at any time, but early on in the year as your program begins, looking for people who start to meet a basic criteria. People who give to passive solicits more than once need to be flagged. You know, if you send out 2 pieces of mail, I guarantee you the number of people who gave to both, even in a 15 or 20,000 person universe, is very small. It's actually, you know, it's a significant 1, 2, 3% of that list is going to give to both. They are self-identifying as a future fundraising partner. They're telling you that they love you in a way that other people don't. It's the stupidest form of ask imaginable. A non-tax deductible piece of paper ask at their door at the end of the workday. And they're taking time to sit at their kitchen table, write a check, put it back in an envelope, a stamp on it, send it back. It's a great indicator. And what you can ask somebody who's studying this for you is be like, look, I just want the names, I just want the Excel spreadsheet of people that meet this basic criteria. Because we have some things, if they do that, they're going to get kicked to my finance director, and we're going to start to brainstorm some ways to get at them. Are the majority of them, say, from the largest metropolitan area in our state? Because that's the most democratic, right? So are they over the age of 65 predominantly, and are they from Charlotte? Well, it sounds like we might want to consider having a low-dollar event in Charlotte that these folks can get some more personal, right, attention paid to them. So, but this is what I mean, like, rethinking the people who are giving to you to try and get them to give more throughout the year to be more to the party. That's the concept behind donor revolution. And finally, so just quickly for discussion purposes, what beyond a check are some of the things that people can do for your state party that you'd feel comfortable asking for right now, that you'd want to ask for? Yes, ma'am.
Food or anything like that for an event, but sometimes there's times such as tweeting. We just had our big primary night, and so we got some tweeters together.
Being a messenger, a tweeter?
Yeah, and just had some fun with that and made it, you know, splashier, bigger.
And nothing motivates, I mean, I don't fully understand it because I have a Twitter account that I haven't been on in like months, but it's a bad example, but a lot of people feel deeply invested in the things they tweet about or post on Facebook. Asking people to do that is a great incentive. What else? I heard in-kinds, generally, free stuff.
Hosting events.
Hosting events, absolutely. I haven't heard anybody mention raisers. Somebody you ask to join either a finance committee or to serve as a fundraiser to add capacity, also a great ask depending on the person.
Do state parties generally have a finance committee of people that they use to raise funds, like a campaign would have?
Yeah, there are two types of finance committee, right? There's a working committee of people that generate revenue, and then there's like the other kind. There's like the feel-good kind, whatever kind you want to call it, the non-revenue generating kind. Right. And I think the former is a great tool, particularly if you have something big you're building for, that you can start to talk about giving things, like giving things away or rewarding people's work. To basically say, like, listen, like, or something that has a specific end date, also really helpful. So like a JJ finance committee can often work better than a state party finance committee or an event. They start 3 months out, they have an event date, they're thanked for their work, and that's it. It's just a question of whether you think, so it seems brilliant until your staff has to like staff that committee. So you have to ask yourself, like, is it in the world of finite staff time, is the revenue gonna balance out? In closing, we're just gonna close a few quick notes. Analyze and adapt. It's the first picture ever taken by the Apollo 11 astronauts on the moon. Pretty awesome. The only true failure is making the same mistake twice. So when you analyze your results of your active fundraising, remember, you're measuring everything your organization does, every call, you're gathering results, you're learning about your donors, you're getting better all the time. When you establish benchmarks and you really study your organization as a moment in time, your goals start to reveal themselves. Well, this number's too low, we need to make it better. This list is too old, we need to make it newer. When you measure results, your lessons also become really clear. And bottom line, if you're talking to people, if you're doing events, if you're recording your work, you're getting smarter every day. I'll use the example of Texas, which discovered something remarkable, which was that, so Texas has this major alphabet soup problem, right? They have Battleground Texas doing campaign work, they have Lone Star Project, they have their state party, they have massive city state parties in all of these like 5 big metro areas, Austin, San Antonio. Then they have the Wendy Davis campaign proper out doing this. So donors don't know if they're coming or going. They don't know like who does what, how it all fits together, what am I giving my money to? And they found that their call time was actually really ineffective. They were raising money, but there wasn't, they'd spend 8 hours on the phone for a few $1,000s. It just felt like they were running uphill or running on an escalator going the wrong way. But their meetings were taking off. And over time, as they began to study it over months and months, they realized that the magic moment for them was in getting a donor on the phone to commit to lunch or to a coffee or to a meeting in person. And they're raising $5,000 and $10,000 and $25,000 from donors in person. And it's just, that's their program. Their program isn't as effective, just randomly calling or calling into people. They have to explain what they're doing vis-a-vis these other organizations, face-to-face, eye-to-eye, and they're getting way bigger bang for the buck. So their finance team has kind of shifted its approach. They're less worried about call results. Their #1 call metric is commit to me. Did the donor on the phone commit to me? So that's what I mean by analyzing and adapt. Also this concept of don't let people feel bad in your organization. If you have a great staffer who decides to organize a house party and it sucks, it's okay. 2 of the same house party in the same house, in the same city, on the same day, that's a problem, right? You're doing the same thing and expecting different results. If someone is trying and failing and learning, that's, especially in the early days of a fundraising program, is how you find your ingredients that that get you where you need to be. And share, look, if you're doing anything, I know you're all working, you know, around the clock for your state parties, chances are there's some pretty impressive data being generated by your organization. The problem is, more than likely, people don't know what that is. And establishing a culture of regular reporting intervals, for most state parties, that's executive and central committee meetings, right? It's, you know, once a quarter, your leadership is getting together to hear how you're doing. I've also, one of my predecessors in Virginia has established a monthly version of that, where they do like a combination, you know, some fancy website where the members sign in and can see a PowerPoint on their computer as the executive director is talking on the conference call. So she's like walking them through how things are developing over time. It's a little extreme, but again, it's very, very helpful. You're designing a working document, you know, that's on paper that explains your metrics and can be sort of adapted to be a prospectus for donors and supporters. And you're creating your own kind of inflection points. When you're sitting down and talking to people, you're saying, yeah, there's nothing more important than so-and-so's election, right? But understand that the day after that election, I'm the only individual in the state that wakes up with an organization to care for, right? And I'm gonna inherit debt, HR issues, shutdown issues, I'm gonna be closing down office, I'm gonna be doing all these things. So for us, you know, like Joe Donor, understand that this race is critical to us, but we also have an eye always on what comes next. And we're asking you to evaluate us on a different set of criteria than just election results alone. I'll leave this picture too.
Things don't always work out as planned.
Somebody probably got fired for that. Sad. How with these great vans. So be ready to adapt. Like, understand you're gonna run into challenges. That is okay. The biggest sin is to not be picking up the phone, to not be trying events, to not be working, not be actively fundraising. Adapting to reality. Like I said at the beginning, I understand, you know, the vast majority of chairs, working professionals, doing this on a volunteer basis. There are a lot of strategies working for state parties around the country for making a chair's life livable, but also advancing a program and being an actor in that program. Things like remote call time. A lot of chairs don't live where the state party is headquartered. Establishing a practice where, you know, 2 or 3 days a week, somebody's coming to you that is a totally legitimate request. Like, listen, ED, I would make these calls if I could make them from here. Surrogate call time. If, you know, we had this issue in some of our statewide races where we've had some folks running in Virginia recently, you know, who are things like practicing surgeons who have on-call responsibilities, or they're members of the National Guard that have to go away for a period of time. And you end up solving that problem and keeping a fundraising program going by finding competent surrogates, spouses, partners, vice chairs, elected officials who may be willing to step in and vouch for the party for a period of time. To divide and conquer, so just kind of share your work. This is about that capacity concept where go from just a chair on the phone to chair for the right people, ED for the right people, finance director for the right people, vice chair for finance for the right people, treasurer for the right people. You'll grow out your deal. Volunteer nights. So this is a tricky thing to recruit volunteers for, and sometimes though you do just get lucky, which is we ended up finding a couple of old dudes. They were like Stadler and Waldorf from the Muppets. They had like a hilarious rapport, but basically they were NPR boosters and fundraisers who had retired, and they had made their living for the better part of 20 years just calling people and raising money for NPR. So it's like medium dollar asks. And so we have these nights where they come in and just work a list for us, right? Like here's, people who've given $100 to $250, blah, 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 over this period of time. We have this event coming up. We just want you to call and ask people to contribute, see what happens, right? But it's a list that probably nobody has time to work, so you kind of give it to somebody you train and you trust. On the low dollar side, finance committees we talked about, raisers we talked about. So in conclusion, look, this whole process is about trying to establish a program that you can learn from and build from and measure over time, where you're trusting the people around you, you're doing the work. It's very hard and very frustrating at times, but you're through it all. One of the secret sauces here is that you're communicating a role that becomes understandable to the people you're trying to raise money from. Eventually, it will be repeated back to you. Like, I hear that you guys are trying to figure out what the volunteer situation for your governor's race is going to be, right? You'd be like, yeah, that's exactly what we're trying to do. The average volunteer shift is $40, $10 an hour for 4 hours. The campaign has two options. They can either get volunteers at the beginning of the cycle from the state party because we recruit them, or in September, they can shell out $40 an hour for all the canvassing shifts that they'll need to accomplish. One way or another, they're going to accomplish their door knocks, but they're either going to do it breaking the bank, or they're going to do it on the backs of good Democrats doing it for free. Our role at the party is to get as many free Democrats involved in this process as possible. And if people, you repeat that goal enough times, eventually, people are gonna start responding to you, and that's when you know you're kind of, you're solidifying in people's minds what the goal of the party is. Joe Biden says you're awesome. Hey, Gillian. So questions is 4:45. Thank you for sticking with me through all that. Questions and ideas, issues, discussion. We've gotten through everything I was hoping to touch on today, but I know that the situation in each of your state parties is specific. Jackson, let's hit the list.
I was just going to throw some fun. That was fantastic.